Are HOA fees killing condo sales? And even more importantly, are rising HOA fees killing all residential real estate sales right now? We know that HOA fees have risen greatly in the past 5 years. So how is this impacting sales today? And is there anything that can be done about it? Today we are diving into how HOA fees are having a direct impact on real estate sales. Why are they so high? And what can be done about this? You're going to want to stick around for this whole video because at the end I'm going to talk about what the state of Florida is proposing to help with some of these rising costs. But first, if we have not met yet, I'm Lisa McBride with Sarasota Neighborhood Experts, and my team and I love helping so many of you buy, sell, and invest in real estate in the Florida Gulf Coast. So if we can be of any help, give me a call today. So let's get right into these rising HOA fees. Now, we know that real estate sales have slowed in Florida over the past 12 to 18 months for various reasons. We had such a spike of home sales and appreciation that it was just natural we were going to slow down and see a decrease. Currently, we have a lot of inventory on the market, but did HOA fees play significantly into this? Now, first we need to remember why HOA fees have grown so much. And I know there's a lot of reasons why they've grown, but I want to talk a little bit about how inflation is impacting HOA fees. The general rise in inflation is one of the biggest reasons why the cost of HOA fees have increased. As we know, the cost to maintain a building, if you're in a building that has all the exterior maintenance covered, or even if you're in a single family community, the lawns are taken care of or the amenities are taken care of. And many neighborhoods have gates and guards and social directors. All of these things come with a fee. And in the past 5 years, that fee has risen exponentially. And that isn't even touching base on the insurance cost increases in the last few years. Buyers today, though, are expecting these amenities. So many buyers that reach out are looking for condo buildings that have beautiful pools, that have concierge service, that have somebody at the front door, have beautiful interiors and gathering spaces. And in single family residence, everyone always wants to have all the pickleball courts. They want to have an activities director. They want to have a resort pool. All of these things are going to come at a cost. And at what cost does it seem unreasonable? Now, a lot has changed with HOA fees since the collapse of the Surfside condo. Unfortunately, in Florida, we never had to have reserves when it came to HOA fees. Today, all buildings that are over 3 stories tall must have a milestone inspection and a reserve fund for repairs that are needed in the future. So we kind of have this double whammy of inflation was rising, costs were rising, and then all new rules and regulations were put in place. Prior to this milestone inspection, most condo boards weren't so worried about their reserves and what was upcoming. And obviously that is not the best way to do business. However, as homeowners, we didn't want to put a lot of money in reserves. We didn't want our money sitting in a pot, which may or may not ever be used. I mean, nobody wants to pay for a repair or an adjustment or an assessment on something that's going to be done if they're not going to be living in the building. For instance, you may be living in a neighborhood or a condo building for 3 or 4 years, and they're saving money for roof replacement 10 years down the road. And so it makes sense that people didn't want to pay into reserves. However, that's all changed. And so naturally, there's a lot of reserves that have to be funded. And doing so came with, well, one way to do that is let's raise monthly fees, but also it came in the form of special assessments. So there was a lot of additional fees when it came to condo ownership, and it's trickled down into single family ownership because all those single family HOA boards are not required by law to have a reserve. They have put reserves in place because they don't want to be caught off guard anymore. And it isn't uncommon for neighborhoods that have all these state-of-the-art amenities. They get to be about 10, 12 years old, and that's when all the repairs start needing to be done, or repairs to pools or interior common spaces need to be updated. And so they no longer want to worry about having to impose special assessments. So they're building their reserves as well, because everybody wants to move in to a very fully funded community that has state-of-the-art amenities. But what is this doing for real estate sales? In the past 5 years, HOA fees have actually increased in the state of Florida by 67 to 68%, specifically along the coastlines that have lots of condos. Here in Sarasota, Manatee counties, we've seen that 67% increase. HOAs that used to be $250 to $400 are now $800 to $1,000. If you're living in a condo building downtown or on the beach side, insurance costs are just rising exponentially, along with repairs and reserve lists. So these condo buildings are now seeing HOA fees in the monthly amounts of between $1,200 and $2,000 a month. Now, for some people that are living in $2 million condo, that might not seem like a lot, but many of our homeowners have been living in some of these condo buildings for years and years, specifically out on our keys. There's many homeowners that have owned their condo for decades, and when they originally bought some of these condos at $300,000 or $400,000, the HOA fee was $300, and now $1,200 is a huge increase. For residents on a fixed income, and we're in Florida, so we know that we have a lot of retirees living on fixed incomes, that increase has just gotten overwhelming, and a lot of people have decided they don't want it anymore and are putting their condos on the market. So we have more condos and homes on the market than we've seen in over a decade. Unfortunately, it's all a supply and demand here in our area. That much supply with declining demand is just making home prices and home sales that much tougher. How impactful are all these rising HOA fees? Well, condo sales have actually dropped by 31% since 2022. And the average sale price is down 15% in the last year. So we are seeing large drops in condo sales. And although we're still seeing a good amount of sales for villas and townhomes, when it comes to condos, that is where we're seeing the direct impact. But all real estate in Florida right now is definitely seeing a decline in values. So HOA fees are significant concern to us here in Florida. So what, if anything, can be done about this? Florida has proposed legislation aimed at increasing transparency and potentially capping excessive HOA fees. For instance, they are proposing an HOA Fee Reform Act that seeks to prevent sudden and significant fee hikes, while the Preserve Fund Transparency Act aims to provide homeowners clear information on how HOA fees are utilized. Now, these measures are still under consideration and have not been made law yet. Also, Florida government is looking at ways to subsidize HOAs so that these rising costs can be mitigated. However, these are all things that are proposed, as I said, and are still working through. So hopefully we are going to start seeing some relief in the HOA fees. Also, most communities have had to impose these special assessments or rise in HOA fees to cover all these repairs. I'm starting to hear boards and other communities tell me that they do not foresee any rate hikes into 2025, 26, 27, as they are now fully funded, they're not seeking special assessments, and they're prepared for repairs that are going to be made in the next decade. Hopefully we stop seeing special assessments on all buildings. Sometimes we see special assessments of $2,000, but I know buildings that each homeowner had to pay up to $40,000 in special assessments. Now, I don't know about you, but I think anybody is going to be set back just a little bit with a special assessment of $40,000. As a homeowner, there's lots of ways to be involved and to keep up with what's going on in your HOA. Be sure to review your covenants and restriction documents. Everything that can be done in your community is clearly lined out in your restrictions and covenants. Also, when you live in a condo association, there is state law provides a mechanism to challenge significant increases in assessments. There is something called the 115% rule. If a proposed annual budget results in assessments exceeding 115% of the previous fiscal year's assessment, unit owners have the right to challenge it. Now, there is an exception to the rule. This is excluding insurance premiums and reserve funding for structural integrity and non-recurring expenses. And so you would have to get 10% of unit owners must petition the board within 21 days of budget adoption to call a special meeting. Now, Florida law does not propose a cap on how much a community can set a special assessment or raise their fees at this time. So watching your local budget, make sure you review the minutes of the meetings for your board. Make sure you see those annual budgets, because as homeowners, it's our job to protect our money and the finances of our community, just to make sure that we are not losing value because our HOA fees have gotten so out of hand. There's just too many times that I'm hearing HOA fees are starting to cut services because they no longer can afford it. And the whole draw to these communities are the amenities and the services they provide. So stay educated when you live in any community that has an HOA. And remember, in Florida, 67% of all neighborhoods have some HOA of some sort. Now, they don't all have high cost, but they do all have restrictions and covenants that you must abide to. And on a final note, I want to also make sure people understand that when you're buying in a new community or a new building, the HOA fees are going to stay low for the first year or two. And if a community is being developed, the builder is still responsible and control of the HOA. And they're keeping it low to keep people moving towards that community. Keep in mind, once the building or community is turned over to the residents and the residents form the board, it seems like that's when the HOA fees start to increase, because there's always things that are going to need attention. And as I said, with inflation, the cost of services just continues to increase. So stay informed, be sure you review all documents, become involved in the board. I know that's not a glamorous position, but it is important that all homeowners take a stance on their community because it's for your enrichment. So yes, HOA fees have definitely impacted our sales here in Florida, and hopefully the state of Florida will impose some new legislation to help mitigate those rising costs and surprises. So if you have any questions about HOA fees, condo sales, residential sales, please reach out and give me a call today. As always, I greatly appreciate you watching, and until next time, take care.